in Wallala, 88.3 FM on the Northern California coast at the junction of Mendocino and Sonoma counties. Yes, it is. And good morning. It is 9 o'clock on a Friday, February the 16th. We are live on YouTube right now. We've got a great guest coming up. One of my favorite speakers from our Ocean Life Symposiums, Zack Klyver, is going to be joining us from the East Coast. He's here with us right now on Zoom, but we've got a few announcements to make first. I'm Leanne Lindsay, your host today, and it's been a while since I've been on the air live because I've been traveling and also quite sick, but I'm better now and back at it. And I am a filmmaker located in the Sea Ranch. I'm working on a documentary called Seabiscuit's Legacy, a story of courage, hope, and healing. And of course, I do a lot of work here at this radio station behind the scenes, making sure that we're running 24/7. And quickly, I will go through well, actually, maybe not so quick, but we've got a lot of events coming up this weekend. And the first one is about a chocolate and wine tasting right on the heels of Valentine's Day. And that's going to be at the wine shop in Sea Ranch, just right across from the runway at the airport and across from the fire department. The wine shop from 12 to 2, chocolate and wine. Katie Ausler from Santa Cruz's Mutari Chocolate will be sharing details of this high quality artisan industry. And her partner, by the way, just happens to be the new executive chef at the Sea Ranch Lodge. His name is Stephen Beaumier. And he is a professional chef who has worked at Michelin-starred Quince in San Francisco, Cyrus in Healdsburg, and recently completed a stint at none other than Noma in Copenhagen, and frequently cited, of course, as the world's best restaurant. And that's the new chef here at our Sea Ranch Lodge. That's her partner. Katie will be, and they purchased Mutari chocolate, by the way, back in 2016. But the tasting is of single origin, small and micro batch bean to bar craft chocolate made in Santa Cruz, California. And they will be comparing 3 different single origin dark chocolate bars. That should be delicious. And that's at the wine shop, 12 to 2 this Saturday. And that's right across from the landing strip at the airport, right across from the fire department. And then Shindig, also just down the street from them on Verdant View, is going to be having 2 different dinner events and music events this weekend. One tonight, one Saturday night. Tonight, it's going to be Indian food and music. And it's jazz, R&B, and Afrobeat with Tim Muller on electric and acoustic guitar, along with Paul Muller on bass, saxophone, and keyboard. And then on Saturday, it is a crab dinner by Little Dory. And that is going to also have a silent film playing in the background, Muscle Beach Party. And that's 5:30 to 9 p.m. You can contact Shindig at shindig.searanch@gmail.com or call them at 707-791-0735. And then we have the mid-month pay and take, and also the mid-month pay and take clothing store. And the pay and take is still by the old community center here in Gualala, and that's 9 to noon. And just north of the Chevron is the pay and take clothing store, and that's also 9 to noon. And then at the Point Arena Lighthouse, it is the lecture series as it continues with Robin Joy Wellman, who will present Russia and Our Continued Cultural Ties, highlighting her 30 years of experience as an ambassador for strengthening the understanding of our shared history with Russia. And that's at 4 p.m., and that's at the Point Arena Lighthouse. You can contact them at 707-882-2809. And then we have Titanic, James Cameron's classic romance, that will be playing at the Arena Theater on Saturday evening, and also coming up on Sunday at the Gualala Arts Center, a very special writing event, a 2-hour creative writing workshop with Teresa Burns Gunther. And it's all about mining memories and playing with words. So contact Gualala Arts and find out more about that at 707-884-1138. And then Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same, that was filmed at New York's Madison Square Garden in 1973, will be playing Monday night at the Arena Theater during their Music on Film night. And that is one of my favorites, having come from album-oriented rock radio back in the 70s and 80s in Aspen, Colorado. And we certainly played a lot of Led Zeppelin. And then talking about music at the Sea Ranch Lodge on Thursday, it's Sunset and Jazz with Harrison Goldberg on sax, and it's the trio. So you can hear lots of good music Thursday night. And then get your tickets now for the Walla Arts Theater for next Friday, February the 23rd. They're going to have a musical review featuring musical numbers from on and off Broadway from over the years with a lot of locals. It should be a lot of fun, and that starts at 7 o'clock this coming Friday. And now I would like to introduce our guest who's been patiently waiting in the wings online here, and we are live on YouTube, so you can catch us anytime. But this is Zack Klyver. And Zack has been one of our speakers on the Ocean Life Symposium for many years. He is a marine scientist and naturalist and educator who's also speaking at the NOYO Center for Marine Science in Fort Bragg this coming April 11th at 6 p.m. virtually. And again, that's on ropeless fishing gear, which we want to get an update today and find out more about that. And he is the executive director of Gotham Whale, a New York City whale research, conservation, and advocacy group. And he's the president of his own company, Fluke Whale Tours, that's taking people on extended trips to see whales in the best places at the best times of the year. And he has led over 600,000 people on whale watching tours from Bar Harbor and around the world. And he is also partnering with Ralph Chamie, who is on sabbatical from the International Monetary Fund. And we'll talk more about who Ralph Chamie is, but they are raising conservation funds for whales, and which are a natural built-in defense against climate change for our planet. So we'll be talking about the chapter he'd like to start in our region of the Northern California coast. And so welcome back to KGUA, Zack. I'm so glad you wanted to come on today with me.
Hi, Leanne. It's great. It's a great pleasure to be with you and be back again.
I have always enjoyed talking with you because, Zack, you can talk and you have so much knowledge. I enjoy listening to you. You are so passionate about what you do and you're so knowledgeable. So why don't you tell us, first of all, a little bit about what you're going to be talking about up in Fort Bragg virtually, at the NOYO Center.
Yes, I'm super excited to be co-presenting with a longtime, very close friend and colleague named Richard Riles, and he goes by Rich Riles, and he is the founder of a company called Smelts, and actually set it up as a nonprofit. And Smelts is Sea Mammal Education Learning Technology Society, and the focus is to use technology to address the entanglement issue around whales. And he's an engineer by trade. He's also a passionate animal advocate. So he put the two of them together, and he designed his own ropeless fishing system that is based on using an airbag. And the idea is that a boat would send us an acoustic signal from the boat to the trap on the seafloor, and there's a gear unit that's like a cage with scuba tanks in it, which is next to the trap or string of traps on the seafloor. And those scuba tanks fill an airbag that brings that to the surface, and then you can pull in the fishing gear, but you take the line and the buoy out of the water completely. So this is a genius idea. And having tested this system a lot in the Gulf of Maine, we did the first comprehensive tests of this gear out off the coast of Maine in really rugged ocean bottom. We went to the ledges and cliffs and tried to get the gear hung up and get it caught, and went out into 456 feet of water, and we lifted 3 lobster traps up out of the water column uh, with this gear. It's a powerful lifting engine. You know, the air, once you fill an air bag, it's going to go back to the surface. So his system is really one of the excellent systems. There's a number of them. There's a whole lot of different designs. There's some that are being built for inshore that are maybe a little more simply designed. And clearly the smelts gear is rising to the top as one of the premier systems that's available to fishermen. And Rich and I have decided that what we'd like to talk about is a 10-year review, because he started his effort 10 years ago, and it's really extraordinary how far things have come. He was one of the first people in on this, and I'll have to say with Rich, I feel like I bought in early on, and then when I tested the gear and saw how incredible it was, and saw the reaction fishermen that were willing to test had with it, and what they realized they could do, I became a disciple. But Rich Riles is as involved as anyone in the world right now, and as gifted and knowledgeable and passionate. And he's kind of, I kind of think of him as the Jesus Christ of ropeless gear fishing. So he's an extraordinary speaker, and he is right at the leading edge of this technology and testing all around the world. So it's going to be a fantastic presentation. I'm just there to help move things along and say the simple part. But you won't want to miss hearing him and asking him questions, because this is a very special moment. And he's so busy. I'm so glad he was willing to take the time to be with everyone in your part of the world, because I know this is a big issue for you. And California is such a great state, such tremendous people, and have such a care for the environment. So we're so excited to be able to present the April 11th. Yeah.
April 11th at 6
Yes.
o'clock, and
Yeah.
just get in touch with the NOYO Center for Marine Science and find out how you can participate, attend, whatever you'd like to do. And we have so many fisher folk along our coast. I mean, especially Point Arena with our harbor there, and then all the way up to Fort Bragg. And these fishermen are going out, and fisher folks, I should say, because there are women as well. And they go out and they've been bringing in tons of fish, and we see them parked out here in Walala on the point, and lots of crab these days. You know, you see crab everywhere. So you got crab pots out there. So what's being done for some of these fisher folk and helping them to be able to adopt some of this new technology? Because it's not cheap, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. And I should say first, I grew up in a commercial fishing family on an island on the coast of Maine. So I grew up fishing with my dad, all different fisheries, and fell in love with fishing. I could have easily become a fisherman, but I went to school for environmental science and went that direction, and then went on a whale watch, and that changed my life. But
A lot like
we,
Ralph Chami. He said that's what changed his whole
yeah,
perspective, was being able to see, up front and up close a whale that came up next to their boat. And
that's
look,
right.
yeah. So
Yes,
I can
he
I can
went to
see
see blue whales in Mexico, and he saw the largest animal on Earth, and it came up close to the boat, and that changed his life. So
right, that was a
yeah,
blue whale. And I can see where your passion comes from, having grown up in a family that was commercial fisher folks. I keep saying fisher folks because I mean fishermen, I want to include women too. So
that's right. Absolutely. There's a lot of women involved in commercial fisheries, and are excellent fishermen.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
a really good friend who was involved up in Fort Bragg with a partner there, but she really loved flying the most. And now she has gained all these commercial licenses, and she's flying these big King Air jets now out of Sacramento. So yeah, there's a lot of people here along the coast who are involved in this. And so you are going to be doing that on April the 11th at the NOYO Center for Marine Science virtually. Is Rich Riles going to be in person, or is he also virtual?
I think he's going to be virtual as well.
Okay.
Yeah. He's based out of Bellingham, Washington.
Bellingham, Washington. I
Yeah.
was up in Washington visiting with my son and daughter-in-law who
Oh,
they're
well,
looking for their first house up there. But Bellingham was one of the places we looked at. So I want to also know more about Gotham Whale. So tell us more about that.
yeah. Gotham Whale is a New York City-based whale research, conservation, and education organization that was founded by a gentleman named Paul Seeswarda, who was the curator of fishes and marine mammals at the New England Aquarium, and then at the New York Aquarium. And when he was near his retirement at the New York Aquarium around 2009, humpback whales started to be sighted right from the shores around New York City and along the coast, and they were getting a lot of reports. And so, in going into his retirement, he was already working with a boat tour company that had purchased a boat to do nature tours and seal watching and do what they could. And he started going out with them. They started to see whales. They started taking pictures, and the company moved over to whale watching because the whales were there consistently. There were a number of reasons why they had returned, and they have returned in great numbers ever since. And so he started a catalog and eventually started a nonprofit, Gotham Whale, to curate that catalog and to do education and conservation. And we now have over 350 individual humpback whales that have been photographed in the waters right along Long Island and northern New Jersey and right up against New York City, right by the Statue of Liberty. Our iconic picture is of a whale leaping with the Empire State Building in the background. So it is a fantastic organization. I've been so excited to become part of it. And we have a fantastic group of volunteers that do so much for us. We are really trying to make a difference around the issues that affect the conservation of whales in our region, holding webinars, bringing together people to address those issues. We're really developing a lot around education. We're building a new curriculum that will focus on the effects of climate change on marine mammals, not just in New York, but globally, and work with schools to help them understand more about whales and how we conduct whale research. And then we are doing a lot with research, continuing our research program. About 10% of our pictures come from people that are just out on their own boats and photograph pictures and send them to us. And we have what we call the wanted program, where we are actively looking for pictures of whales, and there's a form people can go online and contribute their pictures. So this is a citizen science project at its heart, and we're really excited about the future.
Oh, I love that. And we have lots of citizen scientists along our coast too. And I just want to give a shout out right now to Scott and Tree Mercer of Mendonoma Whale and Seal Study, because they have worked so hard over all these years to track the information of migration of whales along our coast and seals and lots of other marine mammals and birds here along our coast. And they are the ones who started the Ocean Life Symposium. That's how you and I are connected. And thanks to them, they got you on the show today. And they too have worked with a lot of the citizen scientists along our coast. And now you're collaborating with them. First of all, how did you meet them? And then talk about what you guys are doing about conservation.
Yeah, I met Scott when I was a student in college. I was part of a class that was at College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor that went to Newburyport, Massachusetts to go whale watching. And we went out with Scott. And I think we stayed in his house, a bunch of us, the night before, and it was a great day. We saw a huge number of humpback whales on Stellwagen Bank, and he was up on top photographing them and calling out the names. And that was my first connection to him. And then we've met at conferences and stayed connected. We both have a passion for taking people on trips to see whales around the world. he did that, and he's been a mentor along with Tree. Both of them are, tremendous educators, mentors, and
Tremendous
collaborators. Yeah,
educator. Yeah.
just and just a dear friend. So I'm so lucky to have them in my life, and I totally concur with all you said.
Yeah, and they were just in a recent documentary called Washed Ashore, and they were filmed up at the Point Arena Lighthouse where they hang out a lot of days, observing the whales and marine life. And they go all up and down the coast, but that's one of their basic hangouts is up there at the Point Arena Lighthouse. But if anybody out there that's listening has not seen Washed Ashore, it's a great film. It's a documentary that was created by some Berkeley students, and I believe that you can find it on YouTube. I have to find out, but I've watched it at two different film festivals. So they are passionate about whales and about ocean life and about creating that ocean life symposium that brought so many speakers from around the country. And that's where we first met Ralph Chami was, I believe, the first one that we did together. And this is how we learned to use Zoom and YouTube was at the beginning of the pandemic, well, it was the end of the first year of the pandemic. And Ralph Chami was one of the speakers. And I kept thinking, what is somebody from the International Monetary Fund going to talk about, regarding the ocean? So I'm going to let you tell a little bit about him. And I've got a whole background on him here, right here, but I'd like to hear first how you guys got connected and a little bit what you can say about what he's doing.
Yeah, Ralph went to go whale watching in Baja through a friend who was interested in whales, also in nature, and worked with him in DC. And he went to Baja to go out with the Great Whale Conservancy, and they have a blue whale research project in Baja. I had been collaborating with them also for a number of years, and I had led my own tour out there to guide and take people to see blue whales and gray whales. And so it was through that mutual connection that we started to connect and work together. Because when Ralph came back from that experience, one of the things that happened was that the director of the project, Michael Fishback, had raised the question that, the ships are saying it costs too much money for them to slow down in the area where the blue whales are, especially around the entrance to Long Beach and Los Angeles, where there's a lot of shipping. And he said that, but we know that whales are worth a tremendous amount as well because of all the ecosystem services. There was a lot of science that was being done that showed how important whales were in capturing and sequestering carbon. And so Ralph started asking questions about that piece and really following that down. Like, okay, well, how much are whales capturing and what and realizing there was a price on carbon, he put together a team of economists and they started to calculate this. They started to figure out a calculation. And as you know, Ralph is an advocate of the idea that the financial markets speak in a language of dollars and cents. And
That's
if
it.
we're right, and if you're going to speak their language, sure, we all think a whale is, many of us, is you can't put a price on it, right? If you were next to a blue whale, you wouldn't, but to be able to communicate to the markets, you've got to find a way to do that. And his point is a whale that dies right now, that's hit by a ship and washes up on shore, it's worth $0. But a whale that's alive, based on its ecosystem services, when they did the analysis, they couldn't believe the calculation because this calculation didn't even include everything that they could really account for. But at its heart, they found that an average whale would be worth $2 million based on the ecosystem services it's provide. A large whale like a blue whale might be 8 million. And it's my understanding, I have to be not let the cat out of the bag here or the rabbit out of the hat, but they're revising those numbers and there's a new paper that's coming out. They think that the value is even more. And that science is being refined all the time. But basically, what happens with whales is that they're eating thousands of pounds of food, in some cases, tens of thousands of pounds of food. Often they're diving deeper in some cases to get the food. And when they come to the surface, that is where they go to produce their waste. That's where they create fecal plumes up near the surface because there's no pressure there. So often you'll see whales go to the bathroom when they're at the surface waters, and they are mixing the water. They're moving the water up and down the water. They're bringing nutrients from below to the surface. They're releasing all this fertilizer, which is full of elements that are essential, phosphorus, nitrogen, carbon, and the little plants, the phytoplankton that are at the foundation of the food chain in the ocean, use those elements to grow. We know that over half the air we breathe comes from the phytoplankton in the ocean.
That's
Some scientists think it's
huge.
more.
I mean,
It's
how to calculate that alone?
yes,
Over 50% of the oxygen on this planet,
that's right. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
from the
Comes from
phytoplankton, which they feed through their excrement. I mean,
that's right.
that's huge. I mean,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
why they're one of our built-in defenses against climate change.
They're natural capital. They're natural capital. Yeah.
Natural capital.
And the other thing, when over their life, they're constantly absorbing carbon in their bones through the process of eating. And they're so massive that they can store 33 metric tons of carbon, which is equal to the equivalent of hundreds of trees, what they would capture and store in their life. And when the whales sink to the seafloor, they take that carbon with them. So they are a natural way for us to regulate the climate. By building their numbers, returning their numbers, we're helping improve the climate. And amazing that, you could be in Iowa and your life is connected to whales because of what they're doing, the way they live and how they integrate with the ecology and ecosystem.
I actually like what you just said better than what I had just said about defense against climate change. I like the way you say the natural way to regulate the climate. I mean, that is a great phrase. I mean, because that's what they're doing through carbon sequestration, through feeding the phytoplankton, which feeds us with oxygen. So I am certainly excited about this chapter. What exactly are you doing what are these chapters about? Because I'm interested in participating along with Scott and Tree for sure. I don't have much time, but I will carve out something for this. So tell us more.
Wonderful. Yeah, the idea actually originated with Scott and Teresa. They reached out to me and said, we're still talking about this. We become disciples of this, and we wondered if there's an opportunity to start a chapter, here in Northern California. And I said, well, okay, let me ask the team at Blue Green Futures, which there's many people there, but Ralph and you didn't get to meet Dinah, but she's a rock star, and she is his other key person that's so instrumental in accomplishing what they do. Her name's Dinah Nyberg. She's tremendous. We asked them, and they said, we're so busy, we don't have time. I don't know if you know their latest thing. They're now working with New Zealand and Fiji to create the personhood for whales in that part of the world in the South Pacific. And
I remember him talking a little bit about it. So they really
yeah,
gone
they,
further with it.
they went to the UN and proposed it to the UN that whales have personhood, just like some of the rivers in New Zealand have been given personhood, and more in places in the world, you're seeing natural rights being extended to nature. The people there, the Maoris and the South Pacific Islanders, they want the whales protected. They want to receive the benefit that those whales give them. They believe that their ancestors, that they see them as equals, and they want a greater amount of protection, and they want to have money created from those whales that goes back to their conservation, goes back to protecting them.
Goes back to protecting them. And also, I would think that there might be a way to help those whose livelihoods might depend on, let's say, whaling, because there are still places on the planet where livelihoods are made through whaling. So, what support might be given to them to have an alternative?
Exactly. This is in the work that I'm part of with the Blue Green Futures team, and that you can go to their website. There's a lot of information, Blue Green Futures. Um, we are creating a fund for conservation. I can't say too much at this point about the details, but what we identified quickly was we we realize that we can't create just a right whale conservation fund to save the North Atlantic right whale. We need to create a fisherman preservation and whale conservation fund. We have to save both. You got to protect the fishermen and you got to protect the whales. If we're asking the fishermen to take on ropeless, how do we give them the assurance that we're going to be there and support them in that transition, and to give them the resources and to create, some kind of safety net for them and all of that. I mean, it's an enormous ask.
Absolutely.
It's a
Yes.
huge ask to
You,
ask them to change the way they fish anywhere in the world. And fishermen are part of the ecosystem. I see them as marine mammals. They spend most of their life at sea. They have a profound impact on the ocean. They are a huge part of the ecology. And if we think of them that way, and if they think of themselves that way, we can get away from just focusing on finger pointing and who's the problem and, oh, well, it's not me, it's them. If we're thinking about a solution, and do I know that ropeless for sure is going to fix everything? I'm not sure, but I do think we should be using technology to try to solve this issue. It's a wicked conundrum that hasn't been fixed all around the world. Whales are suffering that are entangled, and it's a humane issue. I mean, for those animals, we just had a right whale that died that came ashore on Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. It was a 3-year-old female, and she had been entangled for a year and a half with a rope around her tail, almost severed her tail. For a year and a half, they tried over and over again to get to her and rescue her. But imagine what that animal went through. Imagine the sadness, the fear. It doesn't understand what's happening. And the fishermen don't want that. But we have to understand we've got to make them feel safe too. We can't just say, we're going to take away what you've done and make you, change without knowing what that's going to be to them, because they have to take care of their families and they have to run a business, and that's their life. They've invested too much and they work too hard. I mean, no, I mean, I can't. I don't know of anyone that works as hard as fishermen. I mean, it is physically tough. So this creating using the ecosystem services to create funds to help with this, I think shows that society wants this, and that's what needs to happen. Society has to support the fishermen and the right whales and the other species of whale that get entangled and see them through it. And this is one way we can do it.
and who better to understand those whose livelihood depends upon the fishing industry than you, who grew up in a family that were commercial fisher folks. I mean, that was your life. You understand it. So you bring a lot to the table in that. And I just want to let everybody who's listening or watching on YouTube that I have been talking with Zack Klyver, and he's with us today thanks to Scott and Tree Mercer, who brought him in to talk with us today here on KGUA in Wallala 88.3 FM. We are on the junction of both Sonoma and Mendocino County coasts, and that is in Northern California. If you're listening online anywhere in the world, you can go to kgua.org, click listen live. There's a web app that'll pop up. One of the things that I've helped with here at the station was creating that app and also keeping us on time. I'm Leanne Lindsay, a filmmaker and longtime volunteer at KGUA. And we are doing our best to keep the station going, to keep bringing you shows like this in the morning. And Zack Klyver is joining us from the East Coast, and he's going to be speaking at the NOYO Center for Marine Science in Fort Bragg virtually on April the 11th at 6 p.m. You can contact NOYO Center for more information about that, but he's going to be talking about ropeless gear technology, along with one of the other, I guess, major advocates who's been around for a long time, Rich Riles, and he's also going to be there talking, and the two of them will be giving lots of information on this. So don't miss that. That's coming up in April. And I'm just so amazed, Zach, at everything that you're doing. I'm glad that there are passionate people out there like you that are, with a bunch of people who gather together, who can think of solutions. And I remember when Ralph Chami was talking during our first Ocean Life Symposium, and he was saying, hey, it's not all doom and gloom, regarding climate change. There are things that we can do. And that's what, Scott and Tree and I have always been like, after his talk, we were like, oh my God, we loved what he talked about. And now you guys are moving forward on this conservation effort. So I'm going to let you speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I would say to you, thank you for your passion for all the film you're working on and the work that you do there. We need artists, we need filmmakers, we need writers we all need to be part of this. It's a big part of what we're trying to do at Gotham Whale is to bring the arts into what we're doing. And we're working with a couple of grad students at Columbia University who are doing a documentary film following us for a year and getting a behind the scenes look at how a nonprofit works and what we're trying to accomplish and our trials and tribulations. And we're very excited about that to
Oh, that
see.
just gave me chills. I'm so excited because I've been telling Scott and Tree, I just really would love to have the time to do a documentary on this, but I've got to finish this other one first. So
Right, right,
I'm
yeah.
glad there are others out there who are taking up that, challenge and going forth with it because that's what we need. We need, documentarians and other storytellers to be able to spread the word and get the message out there visually or on social media, whatever it takes to share this information.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So we'll be looking for people that want to be part of this chapter. Ralph and Dinah said, go ahead. We're super busy, but we'd love the idea. So if you want to take the lead, you can start a chapter and it then made me think, well, I think there's a couple of places we can start chapters.
Right.
So we're in the process of now needing to this create a template and a process for how organizations could create and
Perfect.
what it could be and get it up online and then application process. But I'd like to see a lot of universities, maybe student groups that want to participate in this this is the whale piece is profound, but there's other parts of this that are amazing too. And we think of the elephants, jungle elephants, where there are elephants in African jungles, because they are the gardeners of the forest, they're moving seeds around and also pooping in the woods and increasing the size of the trees. And they capture 7% more carbon where there's elephants than with a forest without elephants. So elephants are another key member. Their value is over $1 million a piece based on their carbon services. Mangroves, seagrass. Seagrass is enormous, capturing carbon.
Enormous.
There's a lot of pieces where we can shift and we can create an economy around nature and give it its due. What it deserves, what it truly provides to the earth, and have this be a circular economy where we're taking a true accounting, and we haven't been taking a true accounting of nature. So we're excited about this piece, and we'd love to have people that are interested be part of it. And you can reach out to Scott and Teresa if you are.
Oh, definitely. They're listening or they might be listening. I don't know. Scott is also on the board of the Point Arena Lighthouse, and I know he's got some work to do today, but they might be listening at the repeat that happens at 1 o'clock. But they're very good friends too, and I am very interested now in talking to them. Now, let me ask you a question. Is it Blue Green Futures that is the one that these chapters will be underneath?
That's correct.
Main organization. Okay, so that would
Yep.
be the main organization.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
And Blue Green Futures, is that something that Ralph Chami started? I was just trying to read his
Yeah.
bio here.
Yeah, I may be getting that wrong. Maybe just Blue Green Future, but that is the
Oh,
organization that Ralph and Dinah founded along with a group of economists.
yeah.
There's Colin at Duke and Tom at Notre Dame. There's an incredible team there, and they are traveling all around the world, being part of this, going to COPE every year, and the word is really, there's a lot of countries and people asking to be part of this effort. So I was at an event in London in April with them where they were where he's the keynote presenter, that he was brought over by the Royal Crown, you know, the King of England. The organization that he has invited him to be part of the work that they're doing to build a
Fabulous.
a sustainable future.
That's great. And I was just reading that the two entities that he has founded on bringing this new paradigm to life is Blue Green World. And so I guess that is part of Blue Green Futures. And then Rebalanced Earth. They're both engaged in realizing the value of the value of the natural world to our well-being and integrating it into our economic system. And he has also co-authored a number of peer-reviewed publications that value the carbon sequestration service of keystone species, just like you were saying, such as the great whales and elephants. So that is Ralph Chami, who has been behind this, along with the other woman that you said, Dinah
Nyberg.
Nyberg.
Yes. Yep. And
Yes,
Chami is interesting spelling. It's Chami.
yes,
Right.
Chami. You can look him up. You can see all the work that he's been doing. And in these last few minutes, Mr. Zack Klyver, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the other thing that you're doing too, and that's whale watching. So you have the other thing that you're doing is Fluke Whale Tours. So I want to know more about that.
Yeah, this is a dream business that I started when I was still guiding and leading trips daily out of Maine, you know, to go out on 3 to 5 hour tours, taking people. And I realized I wanted to take people on trips to the places where there were whales in other parts of the world, and have an opportunity to talk with people on a deeper level. So you know, there's only, with a lot of people on a boat with just a few hours, there's only so much time you have to really communicate. So I was seeking out an experience where we could take people to the best places at the best times of year, go to places that maybe aren't as well known but are incredible for marine mammals. And the idea is to stay at resorts or
Right.
onshore, use local boats. When the weather is nice, we go out. When it's not nice, we stay on shore. And so that is kind of at the heart of the business model. And we're
Oh,
interested in
I love
taking
it.
people to, you know, we're taking people to places like Hawaii, you know, which are well known for
Bali
whales.
or
And
Bali.
but also we're looking at an itinerary that includes more exotic places like Oman and
Oh,
Guadeloupe. And I was just last night developing the trip with some colleagues for Peru, which is going to be incredible. And there's Madeira. There's so many incredible places.
okay.
Um,
That's another thing I want to do. This is like a bucket
Great,
list thing. I've got to do it.
wonderful.
Yeah, so keep building those different tours because it's like an extended, activity where people can collaborate and learn and spend more time, not just going out to see them and what a cool thing that was, but to get a deeper learning, as you were saying.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And what else would you like to leave us with here in the last few minutes? I think one thing I wanted you to mention was we were in our communication talking about the narwhal.
Yes. Well, I mentioned that I have a book that I've been slowly working on, and the title of it's called The Narwhal's Tusk. And it's based on the 12 most amazing adaptations that marine mammals have. And the reason I wanted to do a book on using that as the entry is, in my experience of taking people to see whales, what I always have enjoyed so much is telling people about those most incredible things that whales can do, right? So, or that are part of their natural history. And we're learning all the time new things that are just mind-blowing, incredible things. So, for example, the diving ability of a sperm whale, that they can go down to 9,000 feet and stay underwater for 2 hours. The size of a blue whale, over 100 feet, 300,000 pounds, a tail the size of a football, soccer goal, 25 feet. The longevity of the bowhead whale, they can live over 200 years, and the stories of how that, and I also want to weave in my own stories of connection to the whales in that way. And it's going to be a book that really helps what I've tried to accomplish in my career, which is help take scientific information and synthesize it and make it really interesting and make it easy to understand and tell a profound story. So that's what I'm doing. And one of those chapters will be the narwhal's tusk. And I've yet to see a narwhal. I've seen a lot of the whales in the world. I've been to the Arctic. I've seen bowhead whales and polar bears. But narwhal I have not seen. But of course, the tusk of a narwhal has got to be one of the, top most incredible things that whales share with us.
Oh, wow. And the first time I ever heard of the word narwhal, I was doing a little research on a piece of music by the band from the 80s, the B-52s. And I was playing I used to be a rock and roll DJ back in the 70s and 80s, and they had come out with this music during the early 80s. And I had played it in Aspen on KSPN FM there. And it was a fun rock and roll radio station. It was big actually. It was a ski town, and it's much bigger now. But the a couple of years ago, I did a rock and roll show and I was playing it again. So I was doing the research and I went, what on earth is a narwhal? When I was doing the research on rock lobster. And so that's where I first heard about it. And then I saw you write about it and I went, oh, yeah, I remember the B-52s and
There,
rock lobster.
there is a line in there that says, and there goes a narwhal.
And there goes a narwhal.
There goes a narwhal. Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
and and in fact, when we say goodbye here now, because you've got to get on to another meeting, I'm going to play that song right afterwards. So I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on today. This is Zack Klyver, who has joined us from the East Coast in Maine. He's a marine scientist, a naturalist, an educator, and he'll be speaking on ropeless gear technology on April 11th at 6 p.m. virtually at the NOYO Center for Marine Science in Fort Bragg. He's also the executive director of Gotham Whale, a New York City whale research, conservation, and advocacy group. He's working with Ralph Chami and everything that they're doing at the Blue Green Futures, which is
Yes.
going to be amazing, the things that they're doing on conservation for whales. And you're also doing Fluke Whale Tours. You have your plate full, Zack. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great fun.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, Zack. Thank you today for listening to Peggy's Place. I'm Leanne Lindsay, your host and filmmaker, doing Seabiscuit's Legacy, a story of courage, hope, and healing. You can go online to see it at seabiscuitslegacy.com. We encourage everyone who would like to help us finish this film to contribute and donate to our finishing funds. We are doing our last film shoot March 15th. And then we're editing now. We've got a Los Angeles editor working on all the footage we've shot of these special needs children in this equine therapy program at the home of Seabiscuit right here in Mendocino County at Ridgewood Ranch, and all the history behind the story of Seabiscuit, which still has such a great impact on this area. And we are going to be getting into the composition of music and then color and sound correction. Then we'll be finished. So if you'd like to join us, our fiscal sponsor is the Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation, and you can go to their website to make the donation, and you can also find the link on our website, seabiscuitslegacy.com. I'm Leanne Lindsay. Thanks so much for joining us today, and that was Zack Klyver, one of my favorite speakers when it comes to the ocean and all the ocean topics. Thank you, Scott and Tree Mercer, for setting that up. Much appreciated. So to get underway, we're now going to play the B-52s and Rock Lobster.